Hello, how's it going, YouTube? My name's Lee. Welcome to my channel, thedastardLeebatman, and I just saw Alien Romulus in theaters in IMAX, and I will be right back to tell you guys what I thought about it after I play this clip. Okay, so like I said, that was a clip from Alien Romulus, the newest entry in the Alien franchise, and this takes place in between Alien, the original from 1979, and its first sequel, Aliens, directed by James Cameron. And this film is directed by Fede Alvarez. It is also written by him and also Rodo Siegs. Yeah. I don't think that's how you pronounce that. But anyway, and it also stars Kaylee Spaney, David Johnson, Archie Renault, Isabella Merced, Spike Fearn, and Aileen Wu. And they play a group of young people. I would say they're probably like in their early 20s, who are basically trying to get off of a planet. I'll be honest with you, the setup for this is very, very, very similar to Fede Alvarez's previous film. Well, one of his previous films, which is Don't Breathe. It's just kind of there to get you set up. Now, I will go ahead and tell you guys right now that this, the characters in this, with the exception of Kaylee Spaney and David Johnson, and we will speak about them in a moment, are pretty one note. They're pretty much just there to be like, no spoilers or anything, but they're pretty much there to just be fodder for the alien. They're all tropes. One is a pilot, one is a leader, one is the asshole, one is, I don't know, I guess her character is pregnant. I don't know. She didn't really have much to do. But luckily, I felt like Kaylee Spaney and David Johnson are both so good here, especially David Johnson, who gets to play an android in this, and they tell you that literally within the first 60 seconds of the movie. But anyway, they have like an interesting relationship together, and also the film, they're really like kind of the heart and soul of the movie, and they are the main characters. So it makes sense to focus more on them, especially when you do have this many characters, and you're really kind of just getting in here and trying to get things going as soon as possible. But if you're looking for, super memorable characters from each and every single one of these people, like in the first two films, you're not going to get that with this. It's really just two characters that stand out. But I didn't have a problem with that. I gotta say, I'm a big fan of Alien. All right, I feel like most people are. I like all the movies to varying degrees. The only Alien movie, and is more of a crossover, that I don't really like is Alien vs. Predator Requiem. And even that, I still have fun watching. So, take that how you will. All right, and by the way, I do want to go ahead and preface this review by saying, I love Prometheus and I love Alien Covenant, so that's the place I'm coming from with this. Okay, I'm a big fan. All right, and if that's gonna rub you the wrong way while I talk about this, then go watch a reviewer who's gonna be a little bit less biased. But anyway, I gotta say, as a fan, I could tell this is an Alien film made for Alien fans, made by Alien fans. I'm talking about any and every single kind of Alien fan will enjoy this. You will find something in this to enjoy. Yes, that includes if you like Ridley Scott's prequel movies. Hopefully he gets to finish the trilogy sometime. But if you like those movies, you'll even find something here to enjoy in this movie. And that's all I'll say. This is not one of those movies that's, holding up a middle finger or whatever to those prequel movies the way that I think some fans would like them to do. This very much embraces the entire franchise, and I really, really, really appreciated that, because I'm so sick and tired of watching movies that are bringing these franchises back, and they completely ignore like all the other movies for like their own like timeline of events, and he just makes it really, really confusing. For example, Halloween. No offense there, but not a big fan of doing these like multiple continuity crap. All right, you either take the good and the bad and make something new out of it, or jog on. Let's get into the actual film, and I will get back to the this movie does have some fan servicey moments. Okay, we'll get into detail with that. I don't want to there's no spoilers in this review, by the way, but I will be getting into detail about the stuff with the fan service that I did like and the stuff with the fan service that I did not enjoy as much. But before we get into that, I do want to say this does have a bit of a slow start. Like I said, it has a similar setup to Don't Breathe. It's pretty much the same exact setup, which is a group of young kids live in a shithole, and they're like, hey, we can go here and not live in a shithole anymore. So that's what they try to do, and unfortunately for them, they run into some alien shit, and that's bad. And even though it has that slow start, and really I think the only reason it feels slow is because, with the exception of Kaylee Spaney and David Johnson, these characters are not, they're just not really there. They're, like I said, they're just kind of there to, have bodies to throw at the aliens, okay? But I will say that once this movie kicks off, oh boy, does it kick off, man, and it does not let off that gas pretty much ever. And not until, like, the movie's over, okay? So once that shit starts going, man, it's just nonstop, boom, 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 sequence after sequence, cool things after cool thing, just non-freaking stop, man. That makes for an extremely fun watch. This is one of the most fun experiences I've had watching a movie in the theater all year long. Yeah, I'd put it up there with, as far as fun level goes, I don't think this is as good as a movie as Furiosa. It's nowhere close to being as good of a movie as Furiosa. But as far as like the experience that I had, as far as the fun, like, oh man, this is the shit, it very much put me back in there with like Furiosa. And I also did have fun with Twisters, but not the same level as this or Furiosa. But definitely a fun watch. It feels like a theme park and roller coaster ride at times. And, some people may hear that and be like, oh my God, this sounds awful. But no, man, I really, really think that they just did such a fantastic job. It's just nonstop entertainment. It really, because of the soundtrack, the way the movie looks, all the sequences that they have set up, just really, really make this feel so much fun. You ever be on, like, it's just like nonstop adrenaline almost, like how you feel when you're on a roller coaster. And like, this really feels like I'm in an alien like theme park, from the aesthetics, the vibe, everything. It's just like, and I was sitting in IMAX, I was like in the middle of a row, and it just like absorbed me, and I feel like that's definitely the way to watch this movie, especially the first time. You're really going to get absorbed, and you're going to feel like you're in an alien theme park. It's very, very cool. Going off of that, because of that aspect, I gotta say, weirdly enough, because of that, this kind of reminded me of a video game, which is Resident Evil Village. The reason it reminded me of Resident Evil Village is because in that game, it's pretty much just a horror movie theme park, and at times they play the hits of Resident Evil, but at times they play hits from other horror movies, and that very, very much is what this does. There's some really fun sequences in this involving the aliens and stuff, and involving face huggers and people and everything. You've seen some glimpses of it in the trailer, but oh boy, man, I don't think this trailer does justice to how much like really fun, extremely cool sequences there are in this movie. I mean, it's just like they go from set piece to set piece, and you're just like, oh my God, like, when is it gonna stop? And that's very much how I felt when I was playing like Resident Evil Village. And it's funny because like even like with that game will slow down and give you like some horror stuff, and then it'll ramp back up to like theme park ride status. And this movie does the exact same thing, where it's like horror movie, oh, ramp back up to theme park, oh, now we're doing scary stuff again, oh, now we're doing theme park stuff again. Extremely cool stuff. Now, that's not to say that the writing or anything is similar to video game stuff. I'm just saying, like, I think the way this is structured is a kind of sort of similar structure. That I don't know. I have Resident Evil on the brain because I've been like writing down, figuring out what I'm going to play for Halloween. But anyway, going off of that, I do want to say the standout sequences for me personally. Now, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of good stuff in this, but there's a 0G sequence with acid floating around in the 0G that's been hinted at in the trailer that is just so fun, and just like you hold your breath while you're watching it, because I can't think of a scarier thing than being in zero gravity with a shitload of acid blood floating around, okay? Terrifying stuff. And really fun to watch as well. Also, the final 10 minutes of this is my favorite sequence as well. The final 10 minutes of this is so much fun and so bonkers. I was so happy that they allowed Fede Alvarez to really go there, because with all his other films, he really goes there, and this one is no different. He's doing the exact same thing here, where he's just pushing it, dialing it up to an 11. The movie sits at like a 9 or a 10 for pretty much the entire time. Then that last 10 minutes kicks in, and it's like he's like cranking that shit up to 11, and you're like, holy crap, that's awesome. Anyone who's a fan of this franchise is really going to love the ending to this movie in particular. And that's all I will say about that. Now, speaking of people who are fans of this franchise, you know, the Alien franchise is a brutal franchise. And this movie is no different, okay? There's some brutal ass shit in here and some really, really fucked up shit in here. I know I'm swearing a lot, but whatever. It's just some really, really like, it fits in so well with the rest of with the other tone of the franchise. It's mean-spirited. There's some just mean stuff in this movie, okay? But going off of that, I will say, it's not at Alien Covenant mean-spirited level. I think Alien Covenant's mean-spiritedness remains undefeated. That movie is mean as hell and does not give a shit about you or the characters. That movie, and I think Prometheus is also mean, but there's something just really, really wicked and vile about Alien Covenant that just like, I watch it and I feel like I just have to like sit around for like 3 or 4 days just contemplating my existence. You know, this movie is not going to do that to you, okay? But it's still really mean. There's a lot of mean shit that happens to people in this movie. As a fan of the franchise, I gotta say, I love that stuff. Speaking of how this fits well in with the franchise, I think that this really does a good job of bridging the gap between Alien and Aliens extremely well. Now, I don't mean necessarily on a story front, okay? Because I don't really think there's a gap in between Alien and Aliens that really needed to be filled, but it is nice to have this movie that just slots really neatly in there. And that's because now, whenever I go back and do my big franchise, like, rewatches and stuff, my marathons that I like to do, usually like once a year, sometimes twice a year, it's going to feel really nice having a new Alien movie that slots in perfectly with Alien and Aliens. This movie really, really, you know, Fede Alvarez has talked about how he was trying to meld the tone of the first film with Aliens when he made this movie, and I really feel that he succeeded on that front. And to be honest with you, usually when I watch these movies, I watch them, you know, in release order, right? Some people, they watch the prequels. I've done that before, where I watch like Prometheus and Alien Covenant before I watch Alien and Aliens and Alien 3 and stuff. You know, when I did that last time, I didn't really like it as much as watching it in like release order. So, but I gotta say, with this one, this is like the perfect movie to watch between Alien and Aliens. I can't think of a better movie to put in between the two of those. Like, they really accomplished their goal with that. I really think that was the goal here. And, you know, shout out to Fede Alvarez, because he nailed it. He nailed it. You know, usually when I do my big franchise rewatch now, I'll probably do Alien, then this one, Alien Romulus, Aliens, then like the rest in regular chronological order, and then I'll continue to end with Alien vs. Predator. I always end with the first Alien vs. Predator. Sometimes I throw in Requiem if I'm watching it around Christmas time. I'm doing my rewatch around Christmas time, but usually I kind of like ignore Requiem because, well, mainly because I can never see what's going on in that movie. But anyway, let's get into some stuff that I did not enjoy. Okay, now I've been talking about how this movie is a movie for Alien fans, made by Alien fans, and there's plenty of stuff in here that's fan service that I liked. Okay, for example, the aesthetics. Loved the aesthetics in this. They're wearing the sneakers. They got that bird bobbin thingy in the background at one point. They put like a if you've played Alien Isolation, they have, like, in the background, at one point, they have, like, an Alien Isolation save station in the background, like the little phone thing that you slot your card into to save. Thought that was cool. There's all little bitty, like, background tidbits that I really, really liked. My problem with the fan service in this movie is when it gets, like, to be that in-your-face fan service, when they do, like, callbacks to lines from previous films. I don't like that stuff. And I'm always going to call it out whenever I watch one of these movies. It's just there for nostalgia, and it will date the movie. It just will. You know, in like 20 years' time, when people go back to watch this, they'll probably cringe at the fan service stuff. You know, I got to be honest with you. I don't think fan service is the way to go Like this type of fan service is not the way to go with these movies. The stuff that they need to be doing is the stuff that I'm talking about, where they put things in the background, you know, and just shout things out from a fan. And also like doing story stuff. There's story stuff in this movie that if you're a fan of Alien, the entire franchise, you're gonna really like how they tie in like the Alien like the mainline Alien movies with Prometheus, with Alien Covenant, with all that stuff. You're gonna really enjoy that stuff. That's fan service in my opinion, and they do a really good job doing that. But this other stuff that they do where they have them say like lines from previous movies, like it not only does it not make sense for like the characters in those moments, but it also is just like it's clearly there for the audience to go, whoo, yeah. And that's like a theater moment, and that's fun in the theater, but then when you go back to watch it, you're like, whatever, like moving on. Speaking of that, there's some fan service in this that I hated, that is really gonna date this movie. I think this movie looks fantastic. The practical effects really, really, like, puts it in a way where you can't tell when this movie was made. But there's one aspect in this movie that is gonna date this movie horribly, and that is that they de-age an actor from one of the previous films. I won't say who it is, I won't say what character it is, but they do de-age them. They are in this movie. They're not in it that much, but they're in it enough to where I was like, God, why are you doing this? And it feels almost like, you know, it was a mandate from the studio. Disney really, really loves their fan service, and they really, really love bringing back old actors and de-aging them and doing weird stuff and using AI and everything for their voices and stuff. Like the Luke Skywalker stuff that they do in like the Mandalorian shows, I hate that. I hate it. And they do that in this with like a certain character. I won't say who it is, but I don't like it. And it's unnecessary. And when you watch the movie, you'll realize, well, why wasn't this just an original character? I don't understand. There's no reason for them to be, you know, this character other than for the nostalgia play. So I don't like that stuff. And I wish they would stop doing it. It's going to date the movie horribly. Granted, I do think that there's enough stuff in here that's new that, you know, keeps this movie from faulting, like the fan service stuff in this. It's not so egregious to the point where the entire movie just collapses, because there's so much brand new stuff in here that, you know, and other good stuff in this, and really great sequences that like you can't help but enjoy yourself while you're watching this, despite some really, really bad like nostalgia plays. But luckily the nostalgia plays in this are not anywhere near as egregious as they were in something like Deadpool and Wolverine, or even like in, yeah, it's not even like as bad as like Rogue One, I would say. I've seen some people compare this movie to Rogue One. I vastly disagree. I think Rogue One is way more egregious when it comes to the fan service stuff. But hey, you know, that's just me. The best movie, funny enough, to compare this to really is Prey. So Prey had a lot of fan service stuff, but it had enough new stuff in it that you just didn't care. I still cringe at some of the fan service stuff in Prey, but overall, I still really loved Prey. And by the way, thank God Disney learned their lesson and that they're releasing these Alien and Predator movies in theaters now, because, you know, the next Predator movie is going to be in theaters as well, and that's smart, because this movie, watching this, if I was watching this at Hulu, on Hulu today, I would be baffled as to why they put that crap straight to streaming, because this is going to be a big hit. People are going to love this. This is so much fun to watch in a theater. There's no way anybody, I mean, some people, of course, will not like it. There's always going to be people who don't like a movie. But for the most part, people are going to come out of this very, very satisfied. You know, if this was at home, you just wouldn't have the same feeling. I could feel like the energy of the audience was really, really, you know, having a good time while watching this. And while they were exiting, people were like really talking about the movie and having a good time. If people didn't enjoy themselves in a movie, you can tell, you know. The ending to this does stick the landing. It sticks that landing hard. Like I said, it's my favorite sequence in the entire movie. It's got a great set piece. And because there's stuff about this franchise that I really, really love, and this film does that at the end, you know, I couldn't help but just like grin from ear to ear while it was happening. I just had a really, really good time, and it's so fucked up. It's so fucked up and brutal and just crazy. Had a good time with it. Fede Alvarez continues his streak of making pretty good movies, man. You know, I don't think this is as good as his Evil Dead remake. Very few movies are as good as that Evil Dead remake. That movie, if you want to watch a movie that fucking rocks, that's the movie to watch right there. That movie's just wham bam, thank you ma'am, and then it's over and you're just like catching your breath. You're like, God dang, that's a movie right there. This movie kind of has a similar vibe, but it's not quite up there at that level of energy that Evil Dead 2013 remake had. But it's there, man. This is better than Don't Breathe, in my opinion. and this is one of the best movies in the Alien franchise as a whole. Fede Alvarez, give yourself a pat on the back and a round of applause, man, because you did it. You nailed it. And Ridley Scott, when he saw the screening of this, he said that it's fucking awesome, or it fucking rules, or something like that. And he was spot on correct about that. Pretty much talked about everything I want to talk about. Oh, you know what? Let's talk about the cinematography of this. I really like the cinematography of this. I think the aesthetics, help with the cinematography a lot. They really, really paid attention to detail when it comes to like making sure that this fits in well with the Alien franchise. Everything looks lived in. It's dirty. It's gross. It's got that future 80s aesthetic that the original film, that the first two films had, and it's building on that as well. The world building is really good. Like I said, they're wearing like the sneakers. It's really, really cool in that way. But I gotta say, I think the cinematography in this is really, really good, man. I'm gonna have to look up the cinematographer after this. I stupidly didn't do it. Actually, let me just do it right now. The cinematographer on this is Gallo Olivare. He's definitely going places, because this movie looks gorgeous. It's got a lot of really, really rich and deep, like, dark blacks in this, where, like, you're like just looking in the shadows and stuff. And that stuff, when it comes out on like 4K Blu-ray and stuff, and I will definitely be picking this up on 4K Blu-ray, it'll look so good on like 4K TVs. I don't have an OLED personally. I have a friend who does. It'll look spectacular on any OLED that you have at home. It's gonna look so good because of how like the blacks in this are in the movie, right? It really adds a lot of contrast and stuff. Another thing that's going to keep this movie looking good for a long time, even though there's like that one aspect that I think will age the film, everything else in this movie is like, for the most part, there's so many practical effects in this movie that like, I'm sure that like it's not really 90% practical effects. I'm sure that they used a lot of CGI to touch things up, but the important thing is that it feels like the majority of this movie is done with practical effects. Right? A lot of times when you look at the behind the scenes on a movie, you're surprised at what's CG and what isn't, at least if the CG is good. And in this movie, I feel like it's going to be the exact same thing, but the practical effects in this are so good that there's so much love behind it. I saw that they did like animatronic face huggers. They did animatronics for the xenomorph. That stuff paid off in spades. They even have a guy in a suit for the xenomorph in this. Fantastic. I love that shit. And that's going to keep this movie looking good 20, 30, 40 years down the line. Studios, start doing more practical effects, start doing more, like actually building sets, like it pays off in spades. It's not going to age the movie at all. It's going to keep looking good forever. And so on that note, I loved this. This was great. At first, because of some of the stuff in this, especially that really bad CGI abomination that they bring into this, that's like they're bringing in that weird CGI abomination character. The only time that de-aging stuff has ever looked good was in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 with Kurt Russell. And I think that's because Kurt Russell largely just looks the same pretty much. He's just like got a couple wrinkles and he's got some gray hair. I think that is why it looks so good. And I also think because they used some prosthetics with it as well. But they don't do that here. And it looks like shit. It looks just as bad, if not worse, than what they did with Tarkin in Rogue One. Speaking of the Rogue One comparisons, I will say that, but I will say this, they're not in it as much as Tarkin was in Rogue One, and Tarkin took me out of Rogue One every single time he showed up, whereas with this, because of the way they shoot it and stuff, it didn't take me out as much, but it still took me out sometimes, and that's unfortunate. So at first I was thinking it's going to be 3.5 stars, but because of how good that last 10 to 15 minutes is, I have to give this 4 stars out of 5. I fucking loved this. This was a great freaking time. It's exactly, I think, what this franchise needed at this moment to kind of get people back going to see these movies in theaters and stuff. The last movie, Alien Covenant, even though I love it so much, a lot of people didn't like it. So I think that this is exactly what fans of the franchise have been asking for. And to be honest with you, if you're a fan of this franchise and you didn't like Prometheus and Alien Covenant, and you also don't like this, I have a question for you. What the hell do you want? You're just bitching to bitch at that point. Please don't become like Star Wars fans. Anyway, I do want to say, we've had this movie. This movie's great. Matter of fact, if you guys want to let Fede Alvarez make some more of these, by all means, let the man cook. But Disney, listen to me. Let Ridley Scott finish his prequel trilogy. I don't care if people like it or not. I don't even care if it makes money. I know you guys might, but listen, Ridley Scott, he's a legend. This franchise exists because of him. and his direction. If he wants to come in and do that third movie, bring in Michael Fassbender and finish up the storyline with David and everything, let him do it, because he's earned it. So, you know, we don't know how many more Ridley Scott films we got. Hopefully, we got 20 or 30 more. That's my hope. I love the guy. But I gotta say this. Please, please, just let him make one more. You know, and then you guys can do whatever you want with this franchise afterwards. Even if I end up going to see it and I don't even like it, I'll still appreciate that it exists. Because I really do think Ridley Scott deserves to have, like, you know, that prequel trilogy intact. And that's all I got to say about that. Yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed the video and the review and everything. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'll be back with more reviews next week. Kicking off on Monday, my Rebel Moon review will finally be up. On Wednesday, I went to see Borderlands finally. Dragged my uncle to see it. He actually wanted to see it. He technically dragged me to see it. That review will be up on Wednesday. And then on Friday, whatever's coming out in theaters, I will have the review for that. Oh, you know what? I think it's The Crow. God damn it. Oh, no. Oh. Oh, man. Well, dang. That really just brought me down. Well, anyway, guys, I'll be back with more reviews as well as like some gameplay stuff soon. That's all I got. Peace.